Alright, this should be relatively the same for all DirecTV boxes, but could be slightly different on the HD one versus the standard def one. After a few seconds of having a box hooked up to TV without signal, which means it's either hooked up to a dish that isn't properly tuned or it isn't hooked up to a dish at all, you should get something similar to this on your screen where it says searching for satellite signal on the bottom. First thing you're going to want to do is on your remote is hit the back button and then the exit button. Then you might get some type of error here on the screen. Don't worry much about that. Now you go ahead and hit menu on the remote. Go down using your arrow buttons to the setup. Go down system setup. Go to satellite. Then down here you can go to repeat satellite setup. Now you have to do this for each box because they're used to being hooked up to either a phase 3 or a swim dish, depending on what it was hooked up to before. This particular instance it was hooked up to a swim or a 5 LMB HD dish. It's being hooked up to a non-HD 3 LMB non-swim dish. Basically a dish with 4 outputs on the back of the LMB to run up to 4 receivers, which means you can run 4 standard receivers or 2 standard receivers and 1 DVR that would require 2 inputs because of the 2 receivers built into the single box. So I'm going to go to repeat satellite setup. It's going to ask me to put the dash button in just to make sure I want to delete everything that's in there. I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's down here. Now over here it's going to say please wait. Basically it's checking itself to see if it can see what kind of dish it's hooked up to. Again, if you're hooked up to a dish, it could propagate what you need. Probably won't. And this right here, probably will say SWM, which stands for swim. We need to make sure this says multi-switch. You need to change this one first before you change the top one. It's kind of backwards, but it's the way it is. So once we do that to multi-switch, we change that from swim line 5. We go up to 3 LMB 18 by 20, hit select. So then we should have the 3 LMB 18 by 20 and then multi-switch. Once we have that, we can go sideways over here and then we can go to dish pointing. We can put in the zip code. Once we do that, you hit OK. And this will tell you basically the direction that you can get with a compass bearing, the elevation, how high, and the tilt, which is the angle that you tilt the actual dish. Okay, the further south you are, the higher the elevation will be. The azimuth will change based on where you are, east to west on the United States, and the tilt will change in approximation of both of those numbers. Once we have that, we go to signal strength. This right here is kind of a complicated screen. It actually goes through and shows you all the transponders. Depending on where you are, some of the transponders won't be viewable anyways. They're called spot beams, and they're for local channels in certain areas. So you don't really need to worry about the screen. What you need to do is go down here to signal meters, using the up and down keys. And you get screens like this. Right now we're being shown 0% signal on the 101 satellite. The 101 satellite contains probably about 80 to 90% of all the standard channels, standard definition channels. On a standard box it also looks for 110, which is where a lot of the pay channels are in standard def, the HBOs, whatnots. And then you have 119, which is where a lot of local channels are for certain areas. And what you're looking for primarily is the highest signal strength you can get on the 101, since that's where most of the channels are. And if you're looking on the LMB, the 101 is actually the one that is closest to the, what am I thinking of here? Furthest to the left would be the 101. The 110 is in the center, and the 119 is furthest to the right, based on the way things bounce. So what you probably want on 101, depending on how much you want to fine tune, is you're going to be looking for, well, anything above 80 would be fine, but you probably want to get closer into the 90s. 91, 92, 93 is pretty good. 95 is awesome. 97 is awesome. Same thing, 110, should be able to do the same thing. And same thing, 119. What I would probably do is focus on 110 first, because if your elevation in your azimuth, your left to right, are correct, then this will come in strong. And then all you have to do is work on your skew to get both of your 101 and your 119, because those are based on the skew of the dish more than anything else. Once you get a good signal there, you hit done. Then go to done again. And then you do this again real quick. Right now it's trying to detect what kind of dish it's hooked up to. Right now it's not hooked up to a dish here. So once you have all that and you had good signal, you can go to continue. It's going to verify your configuration, so it's going to look at everything, blah blah blah. After a few moments, it should pop up and you should have TV. Some of the errors you get is unauthorized receiver, things like that. You might have to resend authorization for those types of things, but that should pretty much take care of it. Alright.